6 months after we sold the building, after the transition was done, after the decisions were made, after everyone who was going to leave left, I was sitting in the parking lot on a random Tuesday. From the outside, I handled everything well. The hard calls were made. The people who stayed were being taken care of. The new motto was working. It's gaining traction. And a song came on the radio. I don't even remember what the song was. I just remembered that it sounded like something I used to be. Like the life I had built before it changed. Like the version of me that knew exactly where he stood on Sunday morning. And I sat there in the parking lot with the engine running and couldn't get out the car for 20 minutes. Not because I was falling apart, I had already fallen apart. I'm Clarence E. Stowers Jr., 30 years in. I've built things from nothing and watched them come apart. I've stood in rooms where there was no good answer and found a way through anyway. This is still standing. I don't teach from theory. I teach from survival. Let's get into it. If you've been listening to this show, you deserve to hear this directly from me. Something is changing. Not because things finally went right. And before I tell you what's changing, I need to tell you something first. This is not an apology. This is not a pivot announcement. This is not a rebranding memo dressed up as a podcast episode. This is a conversation. The kind you have when you owe someone the truth about what's happening and why. You've been here. You've showed up. You listened. Some of you have been with me for months, perhaps years. Some of you found this show in the middle of your hardest season of your life and you stayed because something here named what you couldn't name on your own. You earned this conversation. If this is your first episode, everything I'm about to say stands on its own. If you heard what came before, you already know what it cost to get here. So here it is. This show has always been about you. The reason this show exists has never been about me. It's always been about the person on the other side of the microphone. The high-capacity leader, entrepreneur, creator, who looks fine in every room but is quietly negotiating with exhaustion. The person who built something, survived something, and is now renegotiating everything without a roadmap, without a cheering section. That person has been my North Star from the first episode, not a demographic, not a target audience, a real human being in the middle of a real transition who needed someone to say the thing nobody around them was saying. That hasn't changed. What has changed is this. I've gotten more honest about who I am and what I'm actually here to do, and that honesty has a cost. It always does. The cost here is that I had to stop pretending a name was big enough to hold what I was actually carrying. So today is the closing ceremony, and it belongs to both of us. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Write this down. Every new chapter requires closing of the last one with intention. Here's the thing about new chapters that nobody tells you. They require a closing ceremony. You cannot walk cleanly into what's next if you never said a real goodbye to what was. You end up dragging the old thing behind you into the new thing, and then you wonder why the new thing feels heavy. I've watched people do this with their careers, their relationships, with churches, with identities. They moved, but they never leave. I've done it myself. The old name, the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast, served a real purpose. It gave structure to a period of rebuilding. It let me figure out what I was doing while I was figuring out who I was becoming. There's no shame in that. But I kept showing up after I'd already grown past it. I kept pouring into the container that could no longer hold the weight of what I was carrying. And the people listening could feel the overflow, even if neither of us could name it. So today is the closing ceremony, with no regret, with no apology, but with intention. What was built in those episodes mattered. The conversations were real. The frameworks worked. Every episode was true when I recorded it. It was a chapter, a long, important chapter. And today I'm closing it on purpose. Because that's the only way to open up the next one with both hands free. And I need to show you what these hands are actually holding, because that's the only way this conversation is worth having. Make a note of this. The mission is the same, the method is sharper, the voice is clearer. Let me tell you what Still Standing actually is. It's the same show with the skin pulled back. The mission hasn't moved 1 inch. Still the same person, still the same audience, still the same commitment to saying the hard thing clearly instead of the safe thing softly. What has changed is the honesty level. I spent years trying to be useful before I was willing to be honest. I packaged frameworks, delivered insights, hit record, and stayed behind the product. Still Standing is what happens when I stop doing that. This show is built on one thing. I don't teach from theory. I teach from survival. Not inspiration, survival. There's a difference that matters. Inspiration says the right thing. Survival knows what it costs. And I need to tell you what it actually costs, because if I don't, this is just another announcement. And you deserve more than an announcement. 6 months after we sold the building, after the transition was done, after the decisions were made, after everyone who was going to leave left, I was sitting in the parking lot on a random Tuesday. From the outside, I handled everything well. The hard calls were made. The people who stayed were being taken care of. The new motto was working. It's gaining traction. And a song came on the radio. I don't even remember what the song was. I just remembered that it sounded like something I used to be. Like the life I had built before it changed. Like the version of me that knew exactly where he stood on Sunday morning. And I sat there in the parking lot with the engine running and couldn't get out the car for 20 minutes. Not because I was falling apart. I had already fallen apart. I had just done it so well, so quietly, so professionally that nobody knew, including me. I had not lost the building. I had lost the version of myself that knew why the building mattered. The pastor who had a sanctuary. The man who knew what the day was supposed to look like. When the structure broke, that version of me went with it. And I had been performing the old version for months, waiting to feel real again. Here's what nobody tells you about handling something well. Come to the front of the class. Write this down. Competence does not cancel grief, it delays it. And delayed grief goes underground where it does the most damage. I had trained everyone around me to believe I was fine. So that is what I gave them. Nobody asked what it cost me. Not because they didn't care, but because I never gave them a reason to ask. The parking lot on a Tuesday was the first honest moment I'd had in months. And then there was the warning period I ignored for 2 years. Not once, 2 years. The signal started coming before the name stopped fitting, before the transition, before any of it looked like what it eventually became. Sounded like resistance, sounded like showing up to record and feeling like I was performing a version myself that I had already moved past. Sounded like checking the numbers and feeling nothing. Not pride, not motivation, not hunger, just nothing. I told myself it was a hard season. I told myself it was fatigue. I told myself I just needed to push through and clarity would come back. What I was actually doing was arguing with a signal that knew the truth before I was ready to say it out loud. Because leave requires a conversation you're not ready to have. It requires admitting something you built no longer fits. The name you stood behind, the container you kept pouring into, it stopped holding what you were actually carrying. And somewhere between the build and the moment it stopped fitting, you stayed. Not because it was working, because leaving felt like losing. Commitment to a calling is not the same as commitment to a specific container. Staying in the wrong container is not loyalty, it's avoidance. 2 years of that. The warning never stopped coming, just kept overriding it until I finally stopped. The method is sharper because the filter is simple now. If I have not lived it, I don't teach it. The voice is clear because I've stopped trying to sound like a podcast. I'm just going to talk. And everything I just described, that's the curriculum. I know some of you are sitting with that and wondering, what does it mean for you personally? Whether you're losing something you came here for, I want to speak to that directly. You're not losing something. You're getting more of what you came here for. I want to speak directly to the listener who's nervous about this change. You've been here long enough to trust something about this show. You have every right to wonder what happens to that trust when everything shifts. Here's what I want you to know. You're not losing anything. If you came here because someone finally talked about leadership without pretending everything was fine, that's not going anywhere. It's getting more honest. If you came here because the 1% better everyday approach actually worked, that's not going anywhere. It's getting more grounded. But here's the distinction that matters. There is a difference between performed clarity and earned clarity. Performed clarity sounds right. Earned clarity changes things. You've been getting some of both. What's coming is more of the second. Every episode of Still Standing will be a conversation you can't get from anyone who's never lost anything. That's the promise. That's what this name means. I'm still here, not because it was easy, because I refuse to let the hard things have the final word. And if you've been listening to this show, I don't think it's an accident. I think you're still here for the same reason. So let me tell you what comes next, because this is where it gets good. Write this down. What's next has your name on it, so stay close. Here's what's coming. Season 2 of Still Standing launches now, every Tuesday. The first episode is called I'm Still Here. And I want to be precise about what that means, because still here doesn't mean you won. It doesn't mean you're back. It means you didn't stop. And there's a difference between those two things that most people never name. We're going to name it. The week after that, you stayed too long. Let's be honest. You already know what that one is about, because if you've been listening this long, you've been carrying something you already knew the answer to. And you've been waiting for permission to stop pretending you don't. That's what season 2 is. Honest, direct conversation with someone who paid a real price to be here. No borrowed story dressed up as personal experience, no formula, no 10-step program, just the truth from someone who survived it. Here's what I need from you. thing, if this show has ever named something you could not name alone, tell one person. Not for me, for them. Because someone in your circle is in the middle of something hard right now, and they need to know that they are not the only one. Subscribe wherever you listen. Search Still Standing with Clarence E. Stowers, Jr. And if this is your first time, welcome. Start with this episode, then go directly to Season 2. You didn't miss it. This is where it starts, and you're already in it. Something is changing. Not because things went wrong, because things finally went right. And what's next has your name on it. Stay close. Until next time, get 1% better every day. After you listen, tell me, what's the one thing this show named for you nobody else was saying? One sentence. Let me know. Reply today. That's it for Still Standing. If this landed, subscribe now, wherever you're listening. And text this episode to one person who's still standing in something hard. They need to hear it. I'll see you next week.